Your organization has a big vision. Maybe that vision is to increase affordable housing in your community. Maybe it is to connect high school students whose parents didn't go to college with the chance to pursue college. Maybe it's providing healthy food to your community. There are so many good causes to get involved in that it's easy to stretch your organization thin. When you started out deciding that you wanted to have an impact on your community, you hadn't quite narrowed down exactly what you were going to do, so you're doing a little bit of everything. But you're feeling a gap between your vision for having a huge impact in the community and the reality of what's happening in your organization. You might find that the team you wanted to deploy is already dedicated to other work and having trouble fitting it in their schedule to build the community impact programs that you hoped. The staff are too busy. You feel like the budget is not there to hire. It's not gaining traction because no one's putting the time into it. Or you've tried something and it didn't take off. You're frustrated because you see other organizations getting resources and you know your idea is better. Or you're frustrated because as a company, you're trying to engage with the community and you're just not quite getting the traction that you want. And as a business leader or nonprofit executive, if you're going to spend time running new community impact programs, you really want to run an efficient, impactful program. You want to get value for the program in terms of your own organizational capacity. Of course, you do want to give back. You do want to make a difference in the community. You want to change lives. And of course, you want to build goodwill with other stakeholders in the community. But instead, you're stuck giving away a few donations or showing up as a sponsor at a few community events. If you're a nonprofit, maybe you're running events every couple months trying to get people involved, or you're sending out a couple volunteers on a project once a quarter, and just generally not having any cohesiveness to the impact plan that you're trying to accomplish when you start doing it. Yes, you have ideas, but do not know how and where to get that focus. If you watched my last video, the must-do step before launching a new community initiative, you will learn that this focus must come from talking to people impacted by where you show up. Talking to people in the community, talking to people who are impacted by the issue that you're trying to resolve for the community. If you watch this video, you'll learn why having conversations with the community before you get started is critical to being successful. In fact, go back and watch that last video that I posted before proceeding with this one. Then drop a comment in the chat with your number one takeaway from that last video. It'll lay the groundwork for this one in helping you understand why, if you want to run an effective community initiative, you need to talk to people. You need to talk to strangers. You need to talk to stakeholders, to peers, to partners, to people impacted, to make sure that you're actually solving the problem that you have set out to solve. But sometimes the issue is also that you have not chosen a focus. You're just trying to do a little bit of everything and spreading yourself and your organizational resources and capacity so thin that it gets tiring and draining and frustrating. Doing community-based work should be inspiring. It should be engaging. It should be something that you feel like you and your team are making connections around, whether that's internal connections and that your organization is seeing things in new ways, in that your staff and employees are starting to get a different perspective on what's happening in the world around them, in that you're connecting with people that you may have had judgments and preconceived ideas around before. Those are things that should be happening when you're running community-based programs. You should feel that sense of purpose. You should feel like your organization is giving, but also gaining some valuable perspective around the program that you're running. What you need to do in this case is to create a hypothesis around the problem you're trying to solve. It's just like doing market research for any new product or service that your organization might launch. If you're a for-profit company, ideally, before you take something to market, you do a little bit of testing, whether that's formally through surveys and market research studies or testing your email list. If you're a nonprofit, ideally, you're talking to your participants and finding out where the gaps are in terms of the services that they're lacking and the needs that they have and challenges that they're facing. Build the hypothesis around the idea of, here's the problem we think we would be good at solving. And don't make it a whole list of problems. when you see a community issue that you're trying to solve, like some of the ones we previously mentioned, affordable housing, connecting high school students to education, providing healthy foods, there's typically multiple intersections between those problems, multiple points where one of those problems impacts another, like a layer of dominoes. If you knock one over, the whole pile falls, or a flat tire on your car. If you get a flat tire on your car, the car is not really going anywhere, or at least not very far. Challenges that you may see in the community are very similar. So make it just one or two problems. Identify one or two problems that you think or have an idea your organization would be good at solving. Don't try to tackle everything at once. As you build relationships and start to work towards solutions, you'll find people that you can work with who have some of the skills or the services or tools to address some of those other problems, the problems that are beyond the scope of what your organization is good at. Then go out and test your hypothesis through talking to people in the community. And many times, this is something that you hear as direction or advice, but not so much the how to do this. So let's talk next about the how to have the conversations with the people in your community around the problem you think your organization will be good at solving. There are 5 things you want to do next. First of all, talk to a broad range of people. Not just people who share your same political perspective, definitely not just your community partners or the organizations you're either already working with, giving funds to, or receiving funds from. Talk to people you don't know outside of that sphere, outside of the industry, outside of your landscape. Talk to people who are complete strangers sometimes. This requires a level of cold outreach sometimes if you can't get warm introductions from within your network. And bonus tip, getting warm introductions from your network is the best way to do this. But if you can't, people are surprisingly willing to talk when you state you're trying to solve a problem for the community. They're willing to have conversations and give you 30 minutes of their time. Make sure that group of stakeholders is broad. You want to talk to business leaders. You want to talk to elected officials. You want to talk to people impacted by the problem. You want to even potentially talk to people with opposing views or opposing perspectives to your organization. Make sure that group of people you're talking to reflects a wide range of stakeholders. You're trying to understand what is happening in your community broadly. Second, when you have that conversation, start the conversation with a perspective of learning. This is not a case where you're trying to be a partner yet or offer a solution. You may get asked about that in the middle of a conversation, so it's good to be prepared and have an answer around where you think you might be going. But it's okay to defer and say, we're exploring ideas right now when we want to see where we can fit in. When you're having the actual conversation, listen and be attentive to what people are talking about. Active listening is an important communication skill. It's incredibly helpful here, achieving the takeaways that you'd like. Then be prepared in advance. It respects other people's time. Be clear on what you're trying to learn. And in this case, you're trying to learn what your own organization's and personal blind spots are around the issues that you're talking about here. Make sure you come in with curiosity. You're trying to understand what you don't know. And this is where active listening will be really helpful as well. In the questions that you create, ask a combination of emotional questions, things like, what gets you excited about this issue? Or what gets you frustrated about this issue? And then practical questions. What is this area like? What are some of the things that happen here? What are people talking about in the community? After you ask these questions, then fourth, pay attention to their responses. If something seems to get that person that you're talking to excited, follow that thread of thought and ask follow-up conversations. You don't have to stick to an agenda. Because you're trying to learn about your organization's blind spots, following that trail of what people want to talk about and what they find important is how you begin to uncover some new ideas and perspectives beyond what you currently think or believe. And especially, write down the names of the organizations that come up in conversations multiple times. Those are the influencers and key stakeholders within the community. And finally, write down the responses afterward, especially important if you have multiple people within your organization having some of these conversations. Write it down while it's still fresh in your mind as quickly as possible so that you can remember anything you didn't quite get to capture. Highlight the things you did not know, found interesting, or made you have an aha moment. Write down things that you find less important also, because you can use this to spot patterns. Even though you didn't find it interesting, when you look back on the records of multiple of these conversations, you might find that even though it wasn't interesting to you, it came up more than one time. This can help you identify that this is an issue that people are concerned about. Multiple people are talking about it and saying the same thing. So aim to have at least 12 of these conversations, but make sure they are quality conversations. You don't want to talk to 3 people from the same organization or peer organization and call that 3 conversations. That's 3 separate conversations, but in a sense, it's also one conversation. By 12 conversations, you should begin to build a sense of what is happening in a community if you're attentive to the issues. By 15 to 20 conversations, you will find that you are verifying what you're learning in prior conversations. And when you really start to hear the same things over and over again, that's when you can be fairly confident that you have identified an issue, a challenge, or an angle that you may not have been aware of. Once you have this document, sit down with your team and start to match the real problems, challenges, and barriers with your organization's unique strengths and identify who you want to partner with or what type of gap you want to address. Then conduct a strategic planning session around this issue and set goals for what you hope to achieve and define what you will and, most importantly, what you will not get involved in. To run an effective program, you need to define what you're doing and make sure you stay focused and centered on that thing that you're really good at. And when you do this, I guarantee you'll be able to have an impact in your community, engage your team and employees, and feel like you're contributing to the world around you in a way that's meaningful to your organization. You're ready to begin your community impact. Profound Hope Industries works with organizations to help them build a purpose-driven culture that is both effective and profitable. If you'd like to connect with us, click the link below. Like and subscribe and follow along with us so we can continue making videos to help you have a stronger impact in your community while managing your bottom line and building an organization that thrives.